Hey folks, good morning and welcome to this episode of Motorcyclist MC Commute starring Yamaha's 2021 MT-07 naked bike. Let's swing a leg over this bad boy and tell you what it's like to ride. Well folks, there it is, Yamaha's 2021 MT-07. This is an entry to mid-position placed naked bike from Yamaha. Below it is the twin cylinder MT-03. Above it is the triple cylinder MT-09. Above that is the inline 4 powered MT-10. This MT-07 is powered by Yamaha's CP2 generation 689cc parallel twin. This was also introduced for the 2015 model year of the originally FZ07 turned MT-07. Now what's really cool about this powertrain is it's very compact. Look at how small the dimensions of it are. It also puts out a very pleasing spread of torque and horsepower based on its cc size. Yamaha has put new body panels. I love this LED lighting kit. These LED turn signals are neat, but they mount a little sloppily to the motorcycle and have a tendency to pop out once in a while. Nice Masters of Torque LED tail light. Also very nice brightness adjustable display, which we'll talk about in a little bit when we're riding. I really like the aesthetic of this motorcycle. I like that it looks like a premium full-size motorcycle and it only costs $7,700, $100 more than the 2020 MT-07. All right folks, enough talking about it. Let's swing a leg over this thing and tell you what it's like to ride.
Well guys, here we go, and look, a good old-fashioned mechanical key, but this isn't any ordinary Yamaha key. This has a new design. We appreciate it, Yamaha. Good job. It looks new and feels new too. And away we go, folks. That ignition is positioned on top or ahead of the backlit instrument panel, which is kind of new too. All right, right away sitting on this motorcycle, this is a very cozy little street bike to ride. The parallel twin engine configuration makes for a motorcycle that's very, very slim. This motorcycle is slim, the seat is nice and low. I like that the handlebar the position has been modified. It's a little over an inch wider and about 3/4 an inch taller. The bend is still a little funky for my taste. I like street bikes that have a more forward handlebar bend. This thing has a ton of rearward sweep. So not my favorite bend, but I do like the direction Yamaha is going with this Ergonomics package. It's a little bit more tall rider friendly, yet if you are a smaller human being, you are still going to feel comfortable at the controls of this vehicle. 406 pounds with a full tank of fuel, and this motorcycle feels very light, very nimble. I like how maneuverable this thing is, but we'll get to that in a second. Now this MT-07 is powered by Yamaha's 689cc CP2 parallel twin. This is a water-cooled engine with an 8-valve cylinder head. It benefits from an uneven firing order. That gives this powertrain the feel and character of a V-twin. I love V-twin engines. They're awesome, but their packaging can be a little problematic just because those engines are so long due to their V-angle. Now, that's where this parallel twin really comes into play. Is it's super compact, yet it still offers that V-twin like character. I love how much torque this engine delivers. 87% of its peak torque figure, which is right around 46 pound-feet. 87% of its peak torque is made from right over 3,500 RPM. Isn't that crazy? That means you have good propulsion from the moment you let out the cable-actuated clutch. In terms of horsepower, nothing really to write home about. 67 horsepower at the business end of this Michelin Road 5 tire. So certainly not the fastest motorcycle out there, but I like this powertrain a lot. I like it a lot more in the MT-07 than I like in the YZ-FR7. I know we're getting a little sidetracked, but in the R7, the engine's very underwhelming. In this chassis, for this application, it is much more well suited. 6-speed gearbox puts power back to the wheel. Yamaha has tweaked the transmission. The second and third gear dogs are a little bit wider, so they have less space in them, less gap, so the transmission has reduced driveline lash. Now, while I can't really tell it has reduced driveline lash, I definitely feel that the engagement between second and third is a little bit more stout, has a little bit sturdier engagement, which I really like. I'm a guy who likes a lot of feel from the engine, the chassis, the shift lever, the brakes, everything. So anytime you can boost mechanical feel, I am going to be very, very pleased. So good job, Yamaha. Cable-actuated clutch augments the 6-speed transmission, has very nice light lever pull, yet even though it's light, it has some substance to it. There is a decent level of weight to it, which I like. Now, another cool thing about this motorcycle is the clutch lever and the brake lever are black. They're now anodized black. They look very nice. And you can also adjust the position of the brake lever with a 5-position detent. I like the brake lever closer to the handlebar, so I can use the brakes more effectively in a pinch. Now, keeping tabs on the engine vitals is this nice LCD screen. I like this display a lot. It has all of the information of what you want and none of what you don't want. You have a gear position indicator, fuel gauge, which keeps tabs on the 3.7 gallon capacity fuel tank. We've been averaging right around 34.7 miles per gallon. What Yamaha claims 50 some, but 34.7 is what we have registered. To be fair, we've been riding this motorcycle at a very quick clip. I like this bike a lot. The engine's very playful. It's very easy to ride this bike at full throttle, hence the lower fuel mileage figure. Now, we rode this motorcycle after hours, and I gotta hand it to Yamaha. This LED lighting package, this headlight on this bike is so bright. It makes it very easy to see where you're going after hours. The only caveat is you have to make sure you turn down the brightness of this display. That's right, this display is actually adjustable. You can adjust the brightness of it, and if you don't turn down the brightness, it's actually pretty hard to see at night because the screen has such a big glare. So if you're going to be riding after hours, make sure to turn down the brightness on this display. It's super easy to do. Now, unlike Yamaha's MT-09 and now MT-10, this motorcycle doesn't employ any electronics aside from ABS. There's no adjustable throttle modes. There is no traction control. But I wouldn't necessarily write off Yamaha for not including those features. The throttle connection on this motorcycle is just awesome. These cross-plane equipped engines just have such a good torque feel because the engine's power pulses are spaced out more evenly. You have good connection between your right hand and the business end of that Michelin Road 5 tire. So you have really good feel. You can ride this motorcycle hard. You almost feel that the piston pulse is gripping the tarmac. It's a really interesting feel, and it mitigates the need for traction control to a certain degree. The throttle response is sharp without it being overly so. It's also not too tame. It works really good. And I'm not much of a traction control guy, especially on these little bikes. I don't really want or need traction control, so not having it on this bike is going to be okay for me. Handling. Now, this telescopic fork and horizontally mounted linkage equipped shock has just over 5 inches of suspension fore and aft. The fork is fixed while the shock absorber offers spring preload and rebound damping. Now, the actual balance of the suspension components on this bike is pretty good, but the damping character is a little odd. Now, you don't really notice it when you're riding around town. When you're riding around town, this thing actually goes over the bumps really well. Like we mentioned before, the balance of the bike is good. But when you really start leaning on the suspension, the damping just has a very odd character, and it limits your ability to really wail on this motorcycle. Now, I'm not going to say that the suspension is terrible, but the damping certainly could be better. Still, we like that this motorcycle has a lofty level of comfort. This thing goes over the bumps fairly well, and it does a good job of filtering out the imperfections of the road. If you hit a big bump, you're certainly going to feel that, especially in the rear suspension. But based on its positioning and MSRP, we're not going to knock Yamaha too much for its suspension components. Now, triple disc hydraulic brakes keep the speed in check on this MT-07. The diameter of the brake rotors has grown. The front brake rotors are now of conventional design. No more pedals, no more pedal-shaped rotors. Yamaha says it did that to be more in line with the rest of the MT family. Rear brake has good response. I love a good strong rear brake, and this bike has that. Now, folks have been giving me some flack for not doing wheelies, so here we go, guys. Oh god, I just blew it. Let's try that again. That's better. Yeah, much better. This bike really is really good. Really good wheelies out of the MT-07. Amazing. Good job, Yamaha. Excellent job on this bike. This thing definitely passes the wheelie test. I love how playful this thing is. For a little around town / weekend fun bike, this thing definitely checks the boxes. Now, we talked a little bit about the engine character of this Yamaha MT-07. And another feature I really like is the intake. The intake funnel, they modified the design, and that allows this engine to have a little bit more air entering it. It also gives a more pleasing sound. I really like the sound of this MT-07. It has like a nice guttural feel, and if you've ever ridden a Yamaha YZF R1, that's the gold standard in Japanese sport bike character, and there is some of that pedigree alive in this MT-07. The engine does have some vibration, but it is the good kind. It makes riding fun, and it's very well calculated. It's not off-putting. It doesn't make the motorcycle feel strange to ride. It's almost like Yamaha knows a thing or two about acoustics and timing, audio timing. Good job, Yamaha. Now, these rear view mirrors are sourced from the MT-09. They are a little taller, a little wider. They have a good view of what's going on behind the rider. They have a little bit of clarity, is compromised a little bit by the vibration of the engine, but I wouldn't say that is a deal breaker. Now, it's also worth noting that this motorcycle does not have a slipper action clutch. While the YZF R7 does have that feature, this powertrain package does not have that. I don't know why Yamaha wouldn't just include a slipper action clutch on this motorcycle. That would be a nice touch. But again, maintenance. This motorcycle goes 6,000 miles between regular scheduled oil changes. So after your first initial service, this motorcycle goes 6,000 miles between regular scheduled oil changes. Oil filter changes are required every 6,000 miles, every other 6,000 miles. So 12,000 miles for oil filter changes, 6,000 miles for oil, and valve inspection intervals have been extended to 26,600 miles. That is 2,600 miles more than its predecessor, and Yamaha credits a modification to the valve seats. That is how they were able to get that little bit of extra durability. So very nice. Love riding this thing. God, it's so fun. The 689cc's got some giddy up to her. Definitely not the fastest thing on the road, but enough to put a smile on my face. Well, folks, there it is, Yamaha's 2021 MT-07. I really like this motorcycle. The application of the powertrain, the chassis, the styling, the overall ride dynamic is much better than the application of the YZF R7. This is a fun, affordable, and versatile motorcycle for $7,700. All right, folks, let's do some Q&A real quick. There is that floppy turn signal that I talked about. So it has a tendency to pop out, but we have it back in right now. All right, what do you think of the headlight? I love the headlight. It is bright, it is bold, and it looks cool. Good job, Tuning Fork brand. We are paying attention. The exhaust, yes, I like the underbelly swept muffler. Yamaha has moved the catalytic converter to the front there. I like the exhaust, I like the exhaust note. This motorcycle sounds more pleasing than its predecessor. It has nice character. How does it compare to the Triumph Trident? Well, this motorcycle is $400 less expensive than the Trident. Although this bike looks neat, the Trident looks better in my opinion. The Trident also has better suspension. The handling on the Trident is superior to this vehicle, but I'm really impressed with the power and the character of this parallel twin. I like more cylinders. More cylinders are always better for me, but this CP2 engine configuration will give the Triumph Inline 3 a run for its money. How does the conventional fork perform? Well, the spring rate and the balance front to rear is very nice, but the damping character of the fork and the shock is not my favorite. I'm not the biggest fan of the suspension. Where does this stack up with its own siblings, the R7, XSR, Tracer? Yes, Yamaha has a very extensive product lineup, whether you are a sport bike track rider, a touring rider, a city rider. This motorcycle is a good all-around city bike. If you're an urban rider who's looking for something that's small, fun, practical, and manageable, something that has a little bit more pep in its step than the MT-03, but not quite the punch of a inline 3 powered MT-09 or a 4-cylinder MT-10, this would be a logical step. Would I spend my $7,700 on this motorcycle? I would not. If I was in the market for a naked bike like this bike, I would buy the MT-09. MT-09 is much more my style. I like the character of its inline 3. I like the traction control and electronics package that Yamaha has fitted for the 2021 model year. While we're talking about the MT-09, make sure to check out, we did 2 video reviews and 2 articles on the MT-09, so check out that content on motorcyclistonline.com. That's where you will find all of my written content, including a write-up on this MT-07. Well, folks, that is a wrap from today's MC Commute on the MT-07 2021 model year. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs it down if you didn't, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching, everyone.